Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everybody, depending on where you are watching from. My name is Lucia Giovannini, and I wake up every morning with a purpose to empower people through positive change so that they may create better lives for themselves and all sentient beings that we are so interconnected with. And I state this sentence every time because for me, it really captures the essence of not only my work, but of my life, my mission. And I'm also a transformational speaker and author of 13 books, including A Whole New Life, which just launched in the US bookstores. In this inspirational New Life series, I will be chatting with inspiring men and women who have discovered how to harness the power of change and create a whole new life that is truly fulfilling and authentic to who they are. And my next guest on the series is Dan Millman. Dan is a former world champion athlete, university coach, martial arts instructor, and college professor. After an intensive 20-year spiritual quest, Dan's teaching found its form as the peaceful warrior's way, expressed fully in his beautiful books and lectures. His work continues to evolve over time to meet the needs of a changing world. Dan's 17th book, including Way of the Peaceful Warrior, have inspired and informed millions of readers in 29 languages worldwide. The feature film Peaceful Warrior, starring Nick Nolte, was adapted from Dan's first book based upon incidents from his own life. I met Dan a few months ago when we shared the stage in Milan during an event, and I liked his teachings and presentation style. So I decided to invite him in this series. So today I'm so honored to chat with Dan on his views of continually evolving through life, why it's important or even necessary, and how to know when it's time for you, if it's time for you to step into your next level of evolution. So these will be the topics we'll talk about. So first of all, welcome, Dan.
Thank you. Buongiorno, Lucia. Good to be here with you.
I'm so happy to be here with you. And let's dive in. So tell us what evolving to your whole new life meant for your personal life, in your personal quest.
Well, I wish I could give a story about some dramatic single incident that changed everything. People love to hear that and wait for it in their own life. But really, my life has evolved through well, it's more like improvisational comedy than strategic planning. Daniel Boone, who was an early American pioneer and woodsman, he explored the forests where he lived and so on. He said, I was never really lost, but I was bewildered once for 2 days. And that pretty much describes my life and path. I wish I could give a trail of breadcrumbs or stardust to follow, but it's been more for me a process of disillusion. I had some success in my early life in the field of athletics and sport and in school and so on. But with every success, I realized, well, this isn't it. This is nice. It feels good for a little while, but then I need to pick a new goal. So when I went, it was not this, then not this, then not this. And I began to wonder, well, what is happiness? What is the good life? How can I find it? What are a set of life skills I can learn to live better? So I think we all have this natural process of a yearning to have that better life that you described. And yet we have to be careful not to have it come from a sense of not enoughness, of constant dissatisfaction. You know, there was a wise teacher who once said, and actually I got these lines into the Peaceful Warrior movie at the last minute. He said that when you don't get what you want, you suffer. And by suffering, not the Buddhist sense, but just in the sense of dissatisfaction. And he said, when you get what you don't want, you also suffer. And even if you get exactly what you want, you also suffer, because no one can hold on to anything for very long, even a feeling of happiness or satisfaction or achievement. So our lives are a process, and that's what was true for me. It was a process of discovering what I didn't want to do before I found what I did want to do. And so it was like a dimmer switch on a light being gradually turned up and then down a little bit and then up higher. And gradually I began to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I began to see a clearer path, but it really took me at least 10 years after my college graduation to have any sense of it. So I urge others to be patient with themselves and not expect a sense of mental absolute clarity and certainty that they might be looking for, but to experiment, handle what's in front of you. That's what I did. And I kept my eyes open for opportunity and what might lead to a deeper sense of life. And that's probably the best, if somewhat wordy, answer I can give to your question.
Mhm. Yeah, well, thank you for your teachings. So interesting. And they really resonate with my experience because, as a matter of fact, for me, it was something similar, meaning I was leading a beautiful life in a sense, but I was dissatisfied. And then I felt guilty because I had everything and I shouldn't
Hmm.
be dissatisfied. And this is something that I mean, I hear people, so many people, you know, going through this. Like they feel this unsatisfaction, but at the same time, they try to cover it because they say, okay, I have a house, I have a job, I have a family. Why should I should be happy, you know? Um, but in fact, as you said, life is a continuous process towards our evolution. So this is really interesting, you know, and also the patience part, because I think with our society, I mean, everything pushes us, you know, to go faster and faster, and technology pushes us to go faster and faster. And I mean, in technology is useful. I'm not saying it's not, but at the same time, you know, our inner growth, inner evolution does not follow the same timing. And so we very often become impatient and we pretend instant enlightenment or instant change, like if it was an instant soup. And it doesn't work that way.
Exactly. You know, I often remind people one of the best things about going to college is we find out it doesn't make us happy. It doesn't come with a diploma. But if those who never went to college sometimes say, if only I'd gone to the university, I'd be happy. If only I had the perfect relationship, I'd be happy. If only I had more money, I'd be happy. If only I had children, I'd be happy. If only I hadn't had children, I'd be happy. If only I traveled more, I'd be happy. Until we finally realized that there is no future happiness. We're either happy now in this moment or we're not, because the future doesn't come. So it's important for us to come from that place of basic all rightness, okayness, acceptance of where we are. That doesn't mean we won't continue to learn and grow and evolve. Life continues to teach us. But it's good to realize and appreciate our life right now. That's what one of the key things I've learned, not to compare myself to other people, because that always leads to some kind of dissatisfaction or hubris, but just to accept our life as perhaps the grandest life of all, the one we're living right now.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And also by using those paradigm, you know, if only this and this, then I would be happy. Uh,
Hmm.
I mean, we put our life on hold because what we are really saying to our unconscious mind, the declaration we are making is, I can't be happy until this and this happens. And so,
Yes.
and it's a mess. I mean, it's the best road to unhappiness.
Exactly.
So I have another question for you, if you will. How to know if it's time for you to step into your next level of evolution? And are there any skills, habits, routines that can help this process, this reinvention process?
Wow, that's a tough one for me, because as I scan my past, um, there was no moment where I knew it was time to do something different.
Mhm.
Um, I just handled what was in front of me. In my own life, I was a coach, then I was a college professor. I traveled, I moved to one place to another. I was married for 8 years. We were eventually parted. We parted ways. Then I married my dear wife, Joy. We've been together for 43 years since then. Um, and none of it was planned. None of it I knew. Life unfolds in a mysterious way for each of us. I believe our story is our treasure because there's no story on the planet exactly like ours. So we need to trust our own story. Someone once said, I cannot write a book as good as Shakespeare, but I can write a book by me. And I think we're here to write our own story, or to accept the story that is being written. We're characters in a novel. So I wish I could answer the question of how to know. I could make something up, but that's what it would be. It would be making it up, some kind of formula or trick or technique. I think it's just about staying aware and checking in with ourselves, our inner knower. Um, but not being overly self-obsessed or self-preoccupied, of turning our attention outward to the world. um, and and I recommend to people not to strive for success, because that's not in our control. There are too many circumstances to determine what we call success, but we can strive for excellence. That is in our control. So if we strive for excellence in whatever we do, walking across a room, taking a breath, doing some paperwork, whatever it is we're called to do at this point in our lives, the rest takes care of itself. Um, Someone came up to me and said, Dan, I'm doing pretty well, but I don't think I've reached my full potential. And I said to him, how do you know you haven't already reached it? Maybe yesterday you hit your peak and the rest of your time is free play. Um, because all this idea that I'm not doing 100%, that I have to drive harder.
Puts a lot of stress, so stress.
Yes, it is, instead of relaxing into life a bit more.
And it brings contraction, by the way, and it brings fear
Hmm.
instead of love. So it's
Exactly.
really
Yeah.
interesting because it ignites the opposite reaction to the one that we are really looking for. So
Yes.
yeah, definitely. So if there was someone listening who is currently considering maybe making a radical change in their lives, whether that is switching to a completely different career path or vocation, or moving countries, following a new spiritual path, or simply deeply reinventing and evolving themselves, what would be the one message you would like them to take away and carry with them for the rest of their lives?
I think the one message I would offer, um, I often I remind people that I am not here for people to trust me. I'm here to help them trust themselves. And I think it is so important. I come back to this theme again and again, as I've already hinted, is to trust the process of your life. You don't necessarily need to make radical changes. Often they don't stick. They're just swings of the pendulum from one side to the other. But it represents something different if we feel bored with what's going on. We want to radically change and move to another part of the world, or be off with another person, or find an entirely new form of
And
work.
then
On
old
the other
problems
hand,
come again, just to go there and find the old problems have reached us.
Well, we all know that cliche. Wherever we go, there we are. And yet, maybe that's part of our process too.
Yeah,
Maybe if someone wants to make a radical change, they need to consider it. But sometimes we make the leap. You can't leap over a chasm in several small steps. So at times we might try a radical change, but again, trust ourselves that maybe it'll work and that will turn things around or change things in a wonderful way, or maybe it won't and we'll go back to what we were doing. That's all part of the process, and that is a transcendent reminder. Trust the process, whether it's radical changes or whether it's small changes. I recommend to people to dream big, but start small and then connect the dots. For example, if someone wants to make radical changes and begin to exercise, you don't start with running 10 miles. A friend of mine was a stuntman in the movies. He was known for high falls. He had the world's record for the highest falls into big airbags and so on. And someone said, "You must be fearless. How did you begin this?" And he said, "Oh, I jumped off the curb, a few inches." And gradually he built up. So dream big, but start small and then connect the dots. To me, that is the wise course. But again, that's not saying someone shouldn't make a big change if they want to try that. Just see how it works out.
yeah, yeah. Very, very useful advice, definitely. And as I always say, I think, at least in my experience, that most of the time change is not a revolution, but is more has more to do with evolution.
I
We
agree.
evolve.
I agree.
So
Yes.
yeah, so I think that is really a very precious piece of advice. So thank you very much, Dan. Thank you for being here with us. And I was really so honored to have you on this call.
Oh, Lucia, it's such a pleasure. And I'd like to offer one last memo is
Yeah,
I remind people also that you cannot truly lose your way. Wherever you step, the path appears.
yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you very much, Dan.
My pleasure.
And you can find more about Dan Millman if you click on his name on internet, and also on The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. And if you are inspired by Dan's story and would like to learn more about how to make a change in your life, choose a different career, or move to countries, or at least start this change, or start something new, click on the link below to order your copy of A Whole New Life. And stay tuned to my Facebook page for the next interview. And join my A Whole New Life Facebook group if you want to watch the whole series at any time. And see you tomorrow.